Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites. Jennifer Harrison is joining me as a co-host. Jennifer, hi. How are you? Good. Glad that you're here. And continuing with our candidate interviews, we have Mark Donka, who is a Republican, running for the Vermont House in Windsor 4-1. Welcome.
Glad to be
here. And what
here.
does 4-1 incorporate?
Windsor 4-1 is parts of a little small part of Quechee, Barnard, all of Pomfret, and part of West Hartford.
Nice area.
It's
Beautiful.
an interesting area because I don't know who drew the lines up, but it's funny because my neighbors, if you go up my road that I live off of, the people on the left side can vote for me, on the right they can't.
Oh, really? We have some of that in Berlin. I was on the wrong side of the street and they told me to go over there. I went, really?
Yes.
That's strange. So anyway, why don't you introduce yourselves to...
Okay, well, I'm Mark Donka, like you said, running for the House in District 4-1, Windsor. I've been in Vermont for over 40 years. I live in Hartford with my wife of 39 years. How she put up with me, I don't know, and it's a police officer. But I've been a police officer, like I said, for 40 years. I've done all phases of police work. I've been a detective, I've been canine, I've been motorcycle cop. I've done pretty much everything in police work. The only thing I haven't done is mounted patrol yet, but I'm working on that. So in Woodstock, we might be able to get that.
That'd be fun.
Yes, I have 2 daughters, 5 grandchildren.
Whoa, good for you.
My young daughter and husband actually live with us with their 3 children. We have 3 dogs, a cat, 2 rabbits, 8 chickens, and a lizard.
Whoa, Mark, that must keep you busy.
We've got a very full house.
No wonder you're still working.
I have to get away.
Yes, exactly. Wow, that's great. Good for you. We're working on something. I don't know. I need something in the yard, something to watch or something. But anyway, we'll see.
I do love chickens.
Yeah.
But what are your key priorities that you have for your voters?
I think one of the biggest things we have to work on is making Vermont more affordable. I mean, I've been here for over 40 years. The house I live in, my taxes have quadrupled in 20-something years. My salary has not kept up with it.
Right.
And I just don't know where the end is in sight. I just don't see how people can continue paying the amount of taxes that they're paying.
Right.
It just is, it's unconscionable for people. I mean, I've seen so many older people that, retire and then have to move out because they can't afford to keep their house anymore. I had friends in Wethersfield when I lived down there, and they had a big farm, and one of the officers I worked with, his father had the farm, and he said it was so sad because Dad was like selling off pieces every year just to keep up with the taxes, and that's just wrong. That's something we have to change.
I have a friend, I just had lunch with her today. She has a huge, I don't even know what the amount of acreage is, but it's been in her family, and she's doing exactly that. She's selling 10 acres here, 10 acres there, and just so that, she can keep living here.
Right. It's just, we've got to do something to keep people here, and make it affordable for everybody to stay here.
Yeah, I know. But how long, I'm not kidding, how many years have these people been hearing this in the legislature? I mean, seriously, forever.
Yes, it has been for constantly. People tell them and tell them and tell them, but I mean, we have such a lopsided legislature right now that is pushing, as I said when I ran for Senate against the Windsor County Senators, I said they never meant a tax they didn't like.
No, right. Well,
and it was like that. It was like anything that came from, we're going to tax you for this. We're going to tax, every time I asked about the gas tax, they wouldn't even discuss it with me.
Right. That's what they call those fees. I love the heck of discussion about ways and means and their fees. That makes me crazy. Sounds like a tax, most of those, but anyway. When we were talking, you've been up in the legislature, I know you have, so you know how it sort of works up there. What do you think, and I don't know if they're going to deal with taxes, because what's bothering me is next year when you get there in January, there's going to be such an issue of revenues and money's own, lesser revenues. And I don't know how they're going to find the money to do half the stuff they have to do. So what would you like to see them do the first year you're there?
Well, I mean, what they have to do, not the first year, they have to do now is they've got to open the economy up in Vermont right now. They're doing just ridiculous things with shutting everything down.
Right.
I understand the COVID virus is, serious, but I don't believe we should shut the whole world down for it.
Right.
And Vermont is getting killed by it.
Yeah.
I mean, between the gas tax, the rooms and meals taxes and things, the money's not coming in. You know, the state of Vermont doesn't have any product or service that they sell.
That's
They
right.
only make money
Right.
from us
Right.
and from the people. So if we don't do something to keep the money coming in, you know, they're even talking to ski areas about how they're going to limit it. The one, I read one thing where Killington or one of them was talking that, you know, the quad chairs are going to let one person on at a time unless you're in a family.
Oh, stop.
And think of the line. I mean, I've seen the
right.
lines up there.
Right.
People aren't going to come to that. They'll
No,
show up, they'll look at the lines, and they'll say, forget it, kids,
Right.
we're
To
going
spend
somewhere
that
else.
kind of money to wait on a line for an hour.
So, I mean, they've got to open it up so they can start making money. And they also have to look at, you know, streamlining some things. We have to make cuts where we can.
Right.
And everyone, you know, you say that, and a lot of people, as soon as you say cuts, they're like, oh, you're against people, you don't want.
Right.
No, it's just you have to live within your means.
Right.
I mean,
Like we all do at home.
yeah,
right?
I mean, I've always had, you know, my wife and I have, like I said, been together for 39 years, and, you know, we've had a discussion at the kitchen table of, you know, when we were first married, do we pay the mortgage or do we pay the taxes?
Right.
You know, it was like, what can we get away with not paying and get, you know, a couple months
Yeah,
of
right,
grace?
Right.
I've been there,
Yeah.
you know, and I understand there's a lot of people in Vermont that are going through the same thing.
Yeah. And now, I mean, have you heard about stores closing in Woodstock and in your hometown?
Oh,
here?
we're losing 3 or 4 right now
Oh, really?
that are closing down. The pharmacy's closing.
No, that's been there for like forever. Ever.
And that's closing down, and a couple of the small retail stores have closed down, and I don't know if they'll come back. You
Yeah.
know, and I know,
Right.
you know, I do a lot of foot patrols throughout, you know, Woodstock and talking to people and things, and a lot of the merchants are really worried.
And tourism, I mean, that's a hot spot for tourism, Woodstock.
Well,
Who
and
doesn't go to Woodstock?
they've already found out that they're not going to have the bus tours this year.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, when I was there last year, I mean, they would have sometimes 11 buses in a day
right.
show up. That's, you know, 500,
That's a
600 people showing up
Yeah.
at the
The
town.
inn must be suffering big time.
Well, the
Woodstock.
inn is at 50%. That's all they can do, and they're full every single
Oh, I bet.
week.
Yeah.
But it's,
It doesn't
I
pay
think,
the
I think at
bills.
50%, they're just barely making ends meet.
Right. Right. Wow.
So.
Well, and I think now that Dr. Fauci is here, he was here and said we were doing wonderful. I don't think we're going to see too much improvement anytime
Well, I
soon.
thought I had heard that Governor Scott was going to open it up 65%, but he, you know, I think every little bit helps.
Yeah, he has to
But, I mean, we
move
can't-
a little quicker.
Yeah, I mean, the GWSA, the, you know, Global Warming
Right.
Safety Act, that's another thing that's going to hurt Vermont. You
Yeah.
know, they keep talking about stopping this and stopping, you know, what happens if you stop selling fuels and stuff in Vermont? What's that going to do?
Right.
What do we,
We'll all sue.
well, what do we, yes, and everybody gets to sue, but what do you got to sue? It's just a ludicrous act
Yeah,
that they're
it's
even.
going to be a very expensive bill, but anyway.
It's a crazy time, crazy
Yeah.
time. But in the time of seclusion, how are you reaching out to your voters?
A lot of it's Facebook. I'm still going out and talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
We've been discussing it with the party in Windsor County of whether or not we should do door-to-door knocking.
Some people are.
And some are, and they said, you know, you got to just gauge it when you walk up to the door. You
Right.
know, if they're hiding behind the door,
Right, just leave your.
you know, leave your card or
right.
whatever. And you know, we're going to start doing some of that. We're going to start doing some door-to-door things coming up in the next couple of weeks to really get it
I think,
pushed.
well, I had somebody in here from, a Republican from Bennington, Rutland, and she said she was door knocking. When she knocks on the door, she steps back, has her mask, and if they choose not to talk, fine. But she said mostly people have been just glad to see them because that's what we're used to,
Right.
is seeing door to door. I mean, you know, if you don't do door to door, we're not voting for you
Well,
kind
I
of
think
thing.
people also are just happy to see people.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's me. Come on
we're
in.
social animals. We
Yeah.
like to be around people, and you know, we've been locked away all winter.
Yeah.
And I think people really are. I mean, I noticed it with my kids and stuff. And actually, I was up at the high school at work, and the kids were. School didn't start till 8 o'clock, and I pull in, and we'd like to just make a presence up there. At 7:30, they were there.
Wow.
Like-
Because
like
they
when-
wanted to be
I,
there.
I
with
think
them.
they just wanted to be around their friends
Right.
because they haven't really been around.
What
their
are they doing there? Are they doing a lot, the half and half?
I think they're doing 2 days. I think in Woodstock they're doing Monday, Tuesday, closed Wednesday.
For
and then-
cleaning, I heard.
For cleaning, and then
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday. But my grandkids are going in Hartford, and they're going 5 days a week.
Whoa,
And they started them out for the first 2 weeks. I guess they're getting out at like 12:30.
right.
And then they said, we'll see how that goes. And then they're talking by next week or the week after going to getting out at like 10 after 2.
Good deal. Good
So-
job. So you're using, what is it, public media and stuff and
Yeah,
website
just
and-
word of mouth,
you know,
talking to
radio,
people, you know.
TV.
I mean, I come in contact with a lot of people. I mean,
Rest them.
no, I can't do that while I'm on duty.
Oh, I
We're
see.
not allowed to.
That's true.
We're not allowed to
Yes.
politic on duty.
Yep.
That's something that's wrong, but.
Yeah, that is true. I should know better.
Go to door in a hazmat suit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, almost, well, you wear your mask and, you know, just,
Yeah.
Suzanne Butterfield is a close friend of mine.
Oh, for sure.
And she said, she goes, well, she was talking, she says, you know, we're going to punch holes in your cards, your palm cards, and put a rubber band. And
Yep.
she says, we'll slide a plastic bag over them. So it'll look like it's been sanitized. She
Oh, my
And put
God.
it on people's doors, and maybe
Yeah.
then they'll take it and look at it.
I used to put them in an envelope and say, on the outside of the envelope, I had printed, sorry, I missed you. And then I
Yeah.
punch the hole and stick it in, but anyway. So, we've been talking about the things you'd like to see happen, but in 2022, we figure that the budget is gonna be just.
Gone.
Yeah, pretty much. Balancing, it's gonna be a dandy. So, what are you prepared to do from a bringing in revenue and from no more expenses to kind of limiting
Well,
expenses?
I mean, I can't see raising taxes. I just can't see any way possible Vermont can handle anymore. I mean, in the country, we're one of the highest tax states in the country.
Right.
And I mean, it's going to be tighten the belts. We're going to have to look at ways to, you know, get money, you know, as much as we can from, I hate to get it from the federal government because
Yeah, right.
that's my money too.
Right.
But any way we can, we're going to have to work, you know, creatively to
Yeah.
try to keep the budget going and keep people, you know, in work. But you're also going to have to make cuts in places.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
you
it's going to be, it's, you know, the fact of life. It's going to be
Right.
a hard thing to do, but we're going to have to look at everything. You know, maybe some of the committees don't have to be so big that they've got, that are, you know, the
Oh,
different things.
interesting.
You know, let's look at them. Let's see places we can cut a little bit. In fact, with the global warming thing, I think they were talked about having a 24-person committee.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Like they
And-
they
but
come
they're
with
gonna be paid.
solutions. Yeah. Oh,
It was going to be a
is that
paid,
the $50 a day deal?
I don't know what they were going to pay them, but it was like,
Yeah.
we're adding more expense.
Can you
to-
imagine a committee of 24 actually agreeing on something?
Nothing, nothing. I was on a select board with 5 people, and
Right.
it was like banging your head on the wall
I know.
sometimes.
I know, I love it.
Frustrating.
That's bad.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to ask you about the governor, and he said that the economy isn't coming back as he hoped. So what would you plan? What would you think that would be
I
a
think
good
what
idea?
we're going to have to do is open the economy up.
You think
We're
so?
going to have to, you know, we can still take, you know, precautions and try to be safe with the virus. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, we're going to have a vaccine soon. Of course, you know, even if you get a vaccine, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks before the vaccine would even be,
Right,
if you got it that day, it's 6 or 7 weeks before you're really viable.
Right.
You know, but we're going to have to start opening things up. You know, there's no magic way to get the money. You know, there's taxes and fees and whatever else they can do, but the only other way to save money is cutting. I mean, I don't see any other way around it when it comes down to that. And like you're
just because
saying,
we've got, I'm sure you've been following this, the pension plan is a $4.5 billion mess, and Lake Champlain has to be cleaned up. I don't even know what the price tag is, but if we don't start, the EPA is coming in, going to fix it for us and hand us a bill. And that'll be a dandy. And then, of course, I don't understand, I have to figure this out, but what's happening in higher ed, I really don't know where we are in the higher ed world. It sounded pretty disastrous.
Yeah,
when
I mean, they were
Jeb
talking
was
about
talking about closing this and closing that.
closing the colleges and
Right.
whatnot, but it's, again, you know, I mean, I guess you have to look at it, you know, how do you make the cuts?
Right.
You know, and where do you make the cuts? You know, you know, everybody talks about, you know, well, our Senator Sanders talks about, you know, how Europe has free colleges
Oh, yeah.
and this and that.
Right.
But they don't realize that they don't have colleges like UVM that have huge, you know, arenas and
Right.
everything else. You know, a lot of the colleges in Europe and stuff that are free colleges is just like an extension of high school.
Yeah.
You go to school and you come home.
Right,
That's how you go to college.
yeah.
Well, if people want to do that, fine. But I mean, if you want to keep the colleges
No
open,
football? Probably not,
that's,
yeah. I didn't realize that they're a little lean and mean on colleges. That probably makes a lot of sense. I found out we have 3 universities here,
know,
and I
they-
think that's a lot
well,
for this
I don't
small
know.
state.
I still don't understand. I guess I'm ignorant in that sense. What makes the difference between
Well,
a college
that's
and
right,
I mean,
right.
Lyndonville College was always a college.
Right.
I used
Not
to play
now.
hockey up there,
Right.
and now it's a university.
Yep.
So what does...
And Castleton is a university,
But
right?
what does the university name mean?
Right,
Does that just make, we can charge you higher tuition?
exactly.
Your tuition just
more
went up
money,
$10,000
more money.
because it's a university and not a college. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, we'll see what the governor's going to do.
Well, we know that what Black Lives Matter stands for, but what do you feel about the protesting that's going on in Montpelier, Burlington, and all over? And what would you do to bring peace, bring people together?
Well, bringing people together, I mean, it's going to be hard with some of these groups because I still feel that a lot of these groups are paid to come here and
For sure.
agitate.
For sure.
So the only way to deal with agitators is you have to, first off, not let them get away with it for so long. That's what every city you've seen around the country, it started small and built, and they took the kid glove approach of, we're not going to do anything.
Right.
We're going to let them. It's their constitutional right to protest, which it is. And I believe anybody that wants to protest, if you want to stand on the sidewalk and walk up and down with a sign and yell and scream and holler, you want to get a permit and do a march down Main Street or wherever,
Right.
you have every right to do that. But when you start blocking highways, burning buildings, stealing, breaking into places and looting, that's rioting. That's
Right,
not protesting. And that's something we have to change. I mean, they can't just run free will. The police do have to take action.
Right. Yeah, because they're blocking Pearl Street in Burlington. They've been blocking Pearl Street. And if you have an ambulance or you have the police or wanting to get from here to there, they can't because there's all these people in the road. What is that?
So what?
No, I'm just saying, I don't understand why they're doing it. I like those big water gun things.
Water
Push 'em
cannons,
off
the water
road.
cannons, yes.
Well, they put out the fires, they clean the streets, it's great.
So what would you suggest to bring people back together again?
Everybody's got to start, like I said, first off, you have to stop the rioting and looting and things like that. Then sit down with the people that are reasonable that want to talk.
Right.
And let's discuss it, but don't do it through, screaming and hollering. I mean, I was at Montpelier at that police rally.
Oh, yeah, well, I
And-
didn't see you. Did I see you?
I
was
think
there.
I saw you for a
Yes.
minute, but
Oh.
I got up on the stage when things got silly and
Oh, did you? Good, thank you.
just to kind of stand around, but
Yeah.
it was horrible.
Yeah, I was scared, and I talked, but I knew I knew at least 5 state police officers who were in civvies. They were there, and I thought, oh, they won't. I'll be
Well,
okay. I'll run to
that's
them.
what a bunch of us, a couple guys that I knew, we got
Did you get
behind
good? Thank you.
the speakers and stood there and it was just ludicrous what they were doing. I
Yeah.
mean, they were yelling and screaming in our faces. And
Yeah.
every time I tried to question one of them,
Oh,
all
they-
I got was a string of profanities
Right.
of, you're no good this and that. And it's like, I've just
Yeah.
asked you a
I
question.
don't even know what they want. I mean, they don't know what they want.
Well, that's the biggest problem. They talk about systemic racism, which I've been a police officer for 40 years. I worked in New Hampshire for 5 years, and the rest of it's been in Vermont.
Huh.
I think I've arrested 5 black people in my entire career. And that's a stretch. I have to really think back if I did. But I've arrested hundreds of white people.
Right.
And I don't see where it's racist. Like I said, my department, we have black people on our department. We
Right.
have, in my family, I have, brown people, as they call them now, and I don't see where it is. And,
Yeah.
I keep getting told I'm a racist because I'm white.
Yeah, because you have that blue suit on, too.
Right, and I'm in a uniform, and
Yeah.
that automatically
Yeah.
makes me a racist and,
Right.
hating people. And I'm like, I do this because I enjoy being a police officer.
Right.
I wouldn't have done it for this long.
Right.
I mean,
That's very sad.
I've always been involved with people.
Didn't you you probably weren't afraid of them, but I was okay while I was talking because I actually knew some of the people on this side that would come to my aid, I would hope. But I left early because I thought they were going to march up State Street. And that's where my car was parked up by the cap. And I didn't want to be walking and have this gang kind of overtake me. So I left early. And over the next couple of days, I thought of what could have happened. Just one push, one shove,
there
one
was
punch.
there was a few pushes and shoves in the
Were they? Oh.
that I saw happen. A few people were, and it was actually mainly the agitators that were there. Pretty much, I saw one woman. She was standing with a "Support Our Police" sign,
Right.
and somebody came up behind her with one of the signs with profanities written all over
Right.
it, and bopped her in the back of the head.
Oh, wow.
And she turned around. It was funny because her husband was there, and he was a very big man I happened to know, and he kind of gently grabbed the guy by the shoulder and just shook his head no, and the person went away.
Right.
And it was luckily, but I mean, yeah, it could have gotten volatile very quickly.
Yeah, that's what
And
I was
a
afraid of.
little upset that there wasn't more police presence there.
Well, I wrote a letter, an email to the buildings commissioner, and I said, you have to, it's changed. This state has changed. This has made a change. You've got to be ready for this.
Well, the
I was
thing was-
thinking they were going to pour out of 133. You know how they sang out there? No, wasn't anybody there.
Yeah.
And the Capitol Police, they weren't there.
No, and that's what I mean, you know, we had a permit
Yeah, they didn't.
to be there.
Yeah,
You know, when they tried to, well, you were there when they tried to get up on the stage, that
Right.
one guy screaming and
Right.
yelling, and it's like, no, we have the permit. You want to get a permit and have your own rally, go
right,
ahead.
right,
This was ours,
right.
but they wouldn't let it happen, so.
Oh, just got me a little upset. Anyway, speaking of all this, this is sort of self-fulfilling sort of thing. Campaign for Vermont and Vote for Vermont are very supportive of ethics. We worked for years to get this legislature to take it up, the concept of actually having legislation about ethics, because we're one of 2 states, big surprise, that has nothing in statute on ethics. And we would like to talk to candidates about where do they stand on ethics, and having a legislation that actually has some teeth that allow the ethics commission to do something if you're violating, whether it's a fine
Well,
or
there's
something.
no, yeah, I've argued actually with our current lieutenant governor over ethics, and it had to do with the monies that they get for like meals and rooms and things like that.
Yeah, well,
And I questioned on it, and I said, you know, he said something about how much they get a day and everything
Right.
else, and I said,
Per
oh, well,
diem.
I said, well, so everybody takes that or whatever? I said, well, you only take that when you need it. and he says, no, everybody takes
right.
it. And it bothered me because, I mean, to me, you're stealing.
I felt bad for, he had that article in the paper about what he does with his expenses, and everybody's dumping on him, but he's not alone.
No, but I mean,
uh,
and that's what and that was his
yeah.
whole thing was, everybody does
Yeah.
it. So I guess we all take the money, but it's like, but it's not your money that you're taking. You know, maybe I just have ethics that, you know, I've
It's,
grown up with.
I know there's a
I
rationale
think
for it, but
I
it
think there
doesn't
should be
fly.
some sort of ethics, and there should be something with teeth in there that if you do break the rules or you break the law or whatever, you can be. I'm not sure of the mechanics of disbarring or if you're impeached or how
Right,
they throw you
right.
out of it, but there should be something.
Well, if I guess
You're
there's certain level,
censored
it's
or-
criminal. I think, as you know, we had one guy arrested, and
Oh, McAllister.
yeah, but it's turned out a lot of that has gone away.
Way.
But they arrested him right there in the
Well, I think
State
that
House
was a
lawn.
political move
You
too,
think?
but
I think
it's,
so,
but
Unbelievable. But anyway, I would like to see people, Vermonters, have a place to go, to be able to complain if they have this guy is a owner of such and such, and he voted on this legislation, it's a direct conflict, and they don't have any place to go right now. So I'd like to see that. So anyway.
Anything about defunding?
Oh, defunding, yeah. Why don't you go ahead? You can.
About the defunding?
Yeah.
What is your view on defunding the police?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I mean, you're here. Can we talk about
that
it?
might be something to do with my job.
Yeah, right. It's a conflict of interest.
It actually, it's like I said, after all these years, this is one of the darkest places I've seen law enforcement.
Yeah,
I've never seen morale and officers that I've known for years that they're showing up. They're showing up.
right,
And that's what they're getting to the point. They're afraid to do their job.
yeah.
Because they're afraid that I'm going to do something, I mean, there's no nice way to put handcuffs on somebody if they don't want them on.
Right,
As simple as that. So if you have to arrest somebody and they want to fight, you're going to have to fight. And you have to use more force than they have
Right.
in order to take control of them.
right.
So, I mean, defunding the police, I understand they talk about they're going to have more social work. And I think it's a good thing to have social workers to be able to help us with a lot of things. There are certain things, not everybody is trained to be a social worker or to deal with mental illness or things
Right,
like that.
right.
I mean, I've got a lot of training in things like that because I've actually, I don't know if you know Sonny Bravado,
Oh, sure.
but I'm a paraprofessional with him as far as
Great.
doing EMDR and working with people with PTSD and things
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, it's great to have people that you can bring in for that. But, you know, you can't defund them because you're not, I mean, if somebody's breaking down your door, do you want to call a social worker?
Right,
Or do you want to call the police?
right. Well, the former chief of police here, who just retired, he put together
Tony,
this thing, called Team 2, and they train together. It's a social worker, mental health professional, and they all just work together and do, you know, tabletop exercises and stuff. So when they know they're going to a home usually, or somebody on the street or something, they'll call the team in, and they're able to de-escalate it because they have all the professionals there
Right.
to help.
Oh, it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, but I mean, Tony would tell me that they feel like social workers most of the time, what they're asked to deal with the drugs and the mental health and, you know, domestic violence and stuff, and
Well,
It's really sad.
If you read that article that I gave you about policing, you'll see what they want us to do
yeah,
for
we're going to have a show
the
on
future.
that.
The future of Vermont policing is going to be
Yeah.
much different.
Mark is talking about the proposal that the governor and the commissioner of public safety just put out for consideration of changing the format, changing training, whatever.
Oh, it's a 10-step program that
Is
they
it?
want to
I'm going to have to read it. We'll do a show.
It's,
There you go.
but it's.
So why do you think you're the best candidate for the job?
I think I've got a lot of life experience. You know, I've been around people. I've worked with people. You know, a lot of times the people in Montpelier, you know, they can sit there and hash things out for, you know, days on end, I guess. You know, in my job, I've always had to make decisions quickly, you know, and come to a resolution as quickly as I can. I think that'll help me somewhat because, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get things accomplished. You know, I think Vermont has way too many bills are introduced.
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
they need to shorten the legislative session. They should not be going from January till June or whatever.
Yeah.
It should be a 3-month thing. It used to be like that
Right.
years ago. Well, the reason was because it was all farmers and they had to get out and work their
Work
fields.
the fields, perfect.
So they had to leave in March and start, you know, getting to work. But we don't need to do it. First off, there's a savings right there, you know, because I forget every day the amount of money. It's hundreds, thousands of dollars every day for them to be in session.
It's $650 a week to be there as a legislator, and then all the added
Right.
costs for living and travel and that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, and then the buildings and grounds
Right,
and upkeep
exactly,
and everything
right.
else that they have to do. So, you know, if you shorten the session right there, there's a savings. But I just think I have the expertise as far as dealing with people, talking with people. I can get my point across pretty well. And that's what needs to be done. And you've got to be able to work across the aisle. You can't shut people totally down. You've got to be able to negotiate. I mean, it's like any kind of, you know, thing. You're not going to just walk in and say, I want this. And that's the way it's going to be. Because it doesn't work that way in politics. You know, you've got to sit there and you've got to talk to them and you've got to find out and you got to reason. You know, I mean, sometimes some of the things I read that come out of Montpelier, I think
What?
they missed reasoning.
Right.
101 or something, but I mean, that's what they need to do. You have to be able to reason. You have to be able to sit down and negotiate and say, what is best for the state of Vermont? Not what is best for you, what is
Right.
best for the people of Vermont, what's going to keep people here. You know, we need to bring in businesses. We need to keep people, our young people here. You know, there's so many young people leaving the state now
Right,
still.
right.
You know, even with the $10,000, bring them here,
Right.
which I sent the governor actually a mail and asked him if he would send me $10,000 to stay. He wouldn't. But
That's funny.
I said, you know, I mean, I said, we need to keep people
Yeah.
here in the state and let Vermont grow. I mean, our population hasn't moved in, I think, 10 years.
Nope. And I think we're losing more people exodus than coming in. I think we've gotten to that point where there's more people leaving. And for a while, it wasn't that way, but now it is.
Right.
Anyway, well, Mark, thank you very much for being on the
Well,
show.
thank you for being here.
We
I
could
really-
shake hands.
I really
Been a while.
appreciate it. I think it was great.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and in the meantime, keep listening beyond the soundbite.